And I have been very clear, because from this vantage point and platform, what I seek to do is to provide appropriate information to the public and truthfully bring perspectives and inform people. So I am not in the business of hoodwinking or lying. So that caller doesn't even understand why I directed him a while ago to draw 1 million breaks, because I do not ramp with that 3-letter word asserting that I lie. All right, seeking to go to another call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
No?
Good morning, sir. You're on.
Yeah, good morning. Yes. I listened to Marlon in budget debate yesterday.
Speak up a bit more, sir. You're coming across.
Yeah. I listened to Marlon in debate.
Yeah.
Budget debate yesterday, and I don't understand what kind of principle is holding, because in one case he's talking about having no need for a referendum as it respects to the highest court of the land, which is the Privy Council versus the CCJ.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is one. And two, as respect to Portmore, he's now asking for a referendum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same people of this country that is going to ask to have a to participate in a referendum. And two different matters. One, he doesn't believe that it's needed, and the other, it's needed. Right? And the way he go about and explaining all of that, it almost sounds like a con man. Someone who wants this cake and eats it at the same time. Someone who believes that if he don't get his way, then it can't be no other way in one instance. And in another instance, he can't get his way, then this must go to a referendum. It's just very, very untidy as far as I'm concerned. And if you're listening to him, and I believe the Prime Minister needs to speak to that tomorrow when he comes. Because to me, you can't ask the Jamaican people not to participate in a referendum as it relates to the high school.
All right, caller.
Yes.
One of the observations I've made on many platforms is that the PNP prioritizes expediency, political expediency over principle. They do it all the time, and that is why I am able to articulate and express compelling views in whenever I take on points made by them, or whenever I highlight gaps and intellectual dishonesty on their part. So on the Portmore question, referendum should keep, according to Mark Golding. On the question of the Jamaica's final court, we should have no referendum, because what he's arguing, caller, what he's asserting is that your court, you do not want Jamaica's final court to have the rancor, as it were, in relation to a sharp divide, meaning people voting for it or people voting against it. That's what he's asserting. He's asserting that to the extent that this would be a court and Jamaica's final appellate court, you want the matter of Jamaica's apex outfit in the jurisdiction to be divested of the cut and thrust of the politics and the yes or no vote on the part of people. But the truth is, based on the PNP's articulation of a preference for the CCJ, and it is basically setting up the conversation to suggest that it is in favor of the CCJ and the JLP is in favor of something else. That in and of itself, sir, brings this matter into the realm of a sharp political divide. So Mark Golding is arguing something that is undercutting his own argument. Because no matter where you take it, the question of Jamaica's final court is now fully, based on the PNP's latest, salvos, it is now fully in the realm of the political contest and the divisiveness of the back and forth in the politics. So you can't escape that.
I don't understand if you think Jamaica don't have discernment for seeing what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
It's almost akin to a con man.
10 seconds, caller.
Yeah. It's almost akin to a con man to me, and that's what it represents. No, I'm
Well,
married.
a man who was a holder of a British visa who goes around to get a UK visitor's visa in his Jamaican passport. That says a lot. I would like to know how he answered those questions on that passport application form, and Mark Golding should tell us if he answered those questions truthfully. Anyway, we have to run, caller.
Yeah, man, good.
All the best. We go to the NPR News at 10 and come back with Keenan Faulkner at 10:10 for the leaders' contribution to the budget debate. Of course, this follows on Julian Robinson's contribution to the budget debate. We are joined now by economist Keenan Faulkner, no stranger to us here on Straight Up. Morning, Keenan. Welcome to the program.
Hi, morning, Marlon. How you doing?
Very well. I'm good, my brother. And you?
Yeah, not too bad.
All right. So last afternoon, for just about 3 hours, Keenan, the opposition leader spoke. Start out with your, reactions, your assessment of the presentation by the opposition leader, Mark Jefferson Golding.
Yeah, well, I think his presentation will be consistent with the PNP's messaging over the last couple of years to target more, socially oriented programs and policies, especially to deal with cost of living, housing, and so on. But there were two of them in particular that I wanted to really touch on.
Sure.
That I think has more of a fiscal impact. And now the first one would be the NHT, $11.4 billion per year.
Right.
So that is something I agree that it should be discontinued. Initially, I had expressed the view that when the initial commitment is made to have it discontinued in, I think, 2026, 2027, that no, I don't think it should be extended beyond that. It wasn't meant to really be a permanent measure, but would also have been, I think, useful to outline how that revenue loss would be replaced. But I think it should be removed totally. It's been about 15 years now. That could be otherwise diverted. The other one was the elimination of contract work. I know that has been a sore point over very many years. I do think the government presently had transitioned about 8,000 persons to contract work, which is a good way away from contract.
And I'm going to enumerate some of it for my listeners' benefit, Keenan. Don't mean to break your train of thought too much, but the NSWMA workers, the people who do street sweeping and help with the garbage collection and so on, and at our schools, for example, the people who work as the cooks in our canteens at schools, the groundskeepers, and of course the janitors at schools. So these people who were prior to considered casual workers, they are now in the mainstream and are permanently employed people, more dignified modes of employment. Continue, Keenan.
Yeah, and you have also local government employees, a few doctors, and several other categories. So it's something that has been started. It needs to continue because apart from the benefits that you'll get from permanent employment, now continuing to have persons on evergreen contracts for very many decades also poses a fiscal risk because instead of employing people permanently, then you could just disguise the true state of the wage bill by now having persons on fixed-term contracts in perpetuity.
Indefinitely, yeah.
So that is another one that definitely should be continued.
All right, I'm going to come back to this 11 billion because you cannot just take the 11 billion or consider it on one side of the ledger and not consider the other side of the ledger, Keenan. In that, one of the things we saw throughout the opposition leader's presentation, and that's why, and I want to put it to you, is that they are promising to seed revenues, Keenan, in many respects, not least the 11 billion in terms of the drawdown from the NHT each year. They are seeding revenue in relation to what they are proposing to do with the employer's tax credit, moving it from the current 30% to make employers eligible to claim as much as 40% vis-a-vis the employer's tax credit. They are seeding seeding money in relation to giving people 500,000 towards a NHT pay down. They're seeding revenue on the purchase of motor vehicles because they're saying every teacher is going to get a motor vehicle duty concession. All kinds of revenue seeding in the proposals being advanced by the PNP, and at the same time they're planning to do so much more, including under their so-called ease program and many other programs. How do we reconcile? That's a question from a fiscal standpoint. How do we reconcile that? You're doing so much in terms of cutting your own revenue inflows, and then you're promising to do so much more. How do you do considerably more with considerably less? That is the question from a fiscal standpoint and a sustainability standpoint.
Right. Well, you see, Marlon, it would have been helpful if more figures were outlined. This is why all of those projects, program policies, and how it's going to be funded need to be accompanied by a growth plan of sorts. Because when you have tax revenues will only rise with economic growth. So you have all the plans, you have all the policies, but you may not be able to say how precisely you'll fund them. But if you have a plan for growth, say, look, when the economy grows, this is where we're going to get additional revenues, and this is how we're going to fund everything. Because growth has been so anemic. We know the story of the Jamaican economy. I just wanted to give a statistic that is really startling. So in terms of real value-added growth since independence, it has only doubled since 1962 to 2024, right? Meaning our economic output, after having accounted for shocks, after having accounted for inflation, it has only just more than doubled. And over the course of 60 years, that's not good growth performance. It should be doubling within the space of 5 years, within 10 years maybe, or you grow it by multiples of 20, 50, or even 100. So the plan to now grow, and of course, the Prime Minister has outlined the Aspire program.
Which is articulating a plan to pivot toward growth, and that is being undergirded by some actions, not least speed and the newly minted efficiency minister, and of course the passage of the Public Procurement Act, amended act that is, as I would have contributed to the debate in the Senate this past Friday.
Right, so those are plans that are necessarily actionable. And so if we want to be able to fund all of what we are doing, we shouldn't have to necessarily reallocate or worry about getting rid of whatever tax revenue is there. I think also the opposition spokesman spoke to asset tax, which is something I wanted to touch on briefly.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Let's share with our listeners, because, just for the benefit of the listeners, Keenan, the asset tax is essentially a tax that had been imposed on regulated financial institutions. It is essentially 0.25% of the value of their assets, the assets held by the regulated financial institution. And essentially, it is a disincentive to, business operations. It's a disincentive to investments and expansion of their businesses, because you're taxing a good thing. So it's not a perfect tax, as it were. But go ahead, Keenan, with the perspective you wanted to provide to the listeners.
Yeah, and also, it's not tax deductible, so you don't pay it and then you cannot claim back for it. It doesn't go towards things like deposit insurance or things like that. But just to say, when you remove asset tax, and it's something that I agree with. So, Minister of Finance said she'll be in consultations, and the opposition spokesperson said that they are committed to phasing it out over 5 years. Now, it gives the government around 6 to 10 billion per year. So phasing it out makes sense instead of getting rid of it one time. You can probably absorb losses, or you can
in a more sustainable way. Yeah, if you do it incrementally.
Yeah, exactly. So that is something that I agree with, but also, like I said, with the growth argument, needs to be accompanied by what is going to replace it. And if you just think about economic growth, more tax revenue, it just appears that you hope that all categories of tax revenue will now rise,
perform, and be buoyant.
Activity. Exactly, and become more buoyant. So that was another thing within the context of revenue and fiscal. Another thing that had been commented on was the moving around government deposits. Now, I had expressed the view that I think this is likely to have the opposite effect.
Because I made that observation in my opening commentary. This interventionist proposal. Go ahead with the comment on it.
Right. So as I understand it, if you have government deposits and the banks are fighting for government deposits in order to who can pay the highest on government deposits, then it would cause everybody to try to outbid each other. And then in lending to the public, you probably have to lend it at a higher rate. So that's why I said that it might increase it. On the other hand, if you're now thinking about giving your government deposits to those banks that are willing to lend it out at the lowest possible rate instead, it's hard to see banks wanting to fight for additional deposits where they can now only lend them out at the lowest.
That's an excellent technical point. That is why you went to school and actually studied this. I studied several other things. But that's an excellent technical observation, because it may be a counterproductive, a counterintuitive move in this proposal of Julian Robinson and, of course, the opposition of which he's a part, to come with this competition for government deposits. Because there are two sides to the coin you're saying, Keenan. On the one hand, the whole point of public bodies and government having their deposits held at financial institutions is to maintain at least the value of that money, because with inflation you want to be fetching an interest rate that at least does what? Preserves your value, if not increase your value and give you a return on the deposit you hold. That's all?
Right. So, in principle, I do agree with the government using leverage, because it sends a signal.
Yeah, man, it's a way of using tools available to government to signal and get the market to do things that the government wants markets to do.
Right, and now but the way how you go about it matters. So, there's no restriction on government now simply moving its deposits to where it wants to go. It can decide to give smaller banks more money and larger banks less money, and then you equalize it. Now that, I think, would help to bring down interest rates over time, because the whole point of government maintaining deposits in banks and financial institutions is really to day-to-day liquidity requirements. Otherwise, you keep everything in your central treasury account at the Bank of Jamaica. So that, as far as that...
So you're saying, Keenan, to the extent that the financial institutions would be paying very little in terms of, would be on lending rather, the deposits that they hold for very little in terms of the interest rates, they would not have much of an incentive to be competing for government deposits.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a very good technical point.
To compete. I mean, their banks will fight for additional deposits if they can lend them out and get, a lot of spread from it. But if that's not guaranteed, then, I don't think I'll have an incentive to fight for it.
Yeah. All right. Keenan, one of the observations I've made coming out of the budget, moving away from hard numbers now to just some of the proposals from Mark Golding last afternoon, is that some of the things that they are proposing to do are in fact things that are already in train, things already being done. For example, speaking at a post-cabinet press briefing in late 2024, the Prime Minister indicated that ultimately what we're seeking to build out is a single road maintenance authority. What we're seeking to do as well is to better prop up agriculture through irrigation and cold storage. We have seen some cold storage facilities being built out. Your assessment of some of the plans you heard last afternoon, to the extent that you followed the speech, as close as others would have done, in relation to what is being proposed versus what already exists?
Well, yeah, I have seen that comment, that many of the things have already been in train, but on the broader side, I just want to comment on why that policy continuity is important. So, you don't want to disrupt things that are happening. You can probably augment it, you can have different dispense with whatever doesn't work and introduce new things as appropriate. I guess maybe in some instances it's about branding and presentation, maybe representing different initiatives that already exist. But it is important to get out there that policy continuity does matter. And we are at a stage in our development where we have become more mature.
That's
I don't
true.
think we should get rid of things that, unless they're not working, but just getting rid of things just because the other party implemented it, or not introducing it. All of these things where we say we don't want to put things out there that people might steal and all sorts of things. It doesn't help democracy, I think. So, whoever implements it, whoever can do it in the best way, that is really what we want for Jamaica.
All right, and just to come back to this point, Keenan, I listened a program early on radio this morning where the opposition deputy spokesman on finance was contributing to the discussion on that program, and he was essentially indicating that the opposition, to the extent that they have not provided hard numbers or a costing, as it were, to the raft of things announced by Mark Golding yesterday and certainly by Julian Robinson last Thursday, he's saying they will have other fora so to do. What do you make of the fact that this is a budget debate and there is no quintessential forum other than the budget debate to have looked at the numbers, the fiscal parameters of the country at present, and present your proposals within the context of appropriately costed initiatives, particularly in a context where an election is a few weeks or months away, and you're going to be asking people to make a decision based on the proposals you're putting forward. What is the premium you place, therefore, on the costing, Keenan, of proposed measures or plans?
Yeah, that is definitely a sine qua non. It is absolutely necessary to have that in a budget debate. So anything otherwise would probably be an unfortunate oversight, because you have to think about it this way. When you listen to parliamentary proceedings, and that is broadcast far and wide, then persons who are not necessarily party supporters of either party will probably be tuning in, expecting to hear it. When you have party forums or other forums that are distinctly put on only for party people, yes, other persons might hear it, but they might not be willing to listen to it. I have nothing to do with PNP and JLP. I don't want to hear this coming from a PNP or JLP rally, but I want to hear it coming from the parliament, which is the people's business. We're talking about a $1.3 trillion budget. It is almost $1 trillion of tax rates. So we're talking about people's money, and people in general, whatever their political persuasion, want to hear, what are you planning to do with my money?
Yeah. I wanted to give our listeners, Keenan, a sense as to the role of the Fiscal Commission, and essentially, if we're speaking in a hypothetical way, if the Fiscal Commission, or at least the concept of the Fiscal Commission, or let us say its predecessor, EPOC, right, were to have considered all of the things mentioned by Mark Golding last afternoon in a context where they are planning to accrue considerably less in terms of revenue based on the revenue concessions they're making, while at the same time do so much more on the expenditure side, what would a Fiscal Commission hypothetically, how would they view these proposals, if it is that the Fiscal Commission had remit or was in the business of not just looking at government but looking at the opposition's proposals?
Well, it is...
As you say, it's a hypothetical, so this is just, an academic exercise, as it were.
Yeah, I know. Hypothetical academically, because, the remit is government, but if you want to maintain sustainability, you first have to now demonstrate how that will be achieved. So it is not merely the fact that you will have more expenditure and less revenue, because incidentally, as part of the Financial Administration Audit Act, and the Minister would have mentioned it, you can run deficits and you can now still meet your debt target of 60% GDP. You can run up to 1.3%. In fact, this budget could have done that. It had an additional 1.2% of GDP that it could have spent, and it still would have maintained the debt target. So we have sort of overshot it, but now that's why the numbers matter, because the Fiscal Commission or anybody would not be able to evaluate it without saying, look, you plan to run this deficit in this year, but right now there's going to be a surplus for this year, the following year, and in the other 2 years are around, I think, 33 billion. So you could spend 33 billion more than you plan to get in revenue and still meet the debt target for 2 years up to 2028. And I think that's probably how they might evaluate it, because if it still meets the debt target, it can be said to be sustainable. If it goes above that, then some warning signals might have to be sent.
Yeah. All right. Gonna have to leave it there this morning, Keenan. Thank you so much for your perspectives as always. The Prime Minister contributes to the budget debate tomorrow, Thursday, and I trust that Friday morning when we return to get reactions to that contribution, you would perhaps be available to us. So we were proposing Friday at 10:10. But we can touch base offline to determine your availability and so on. But we're in that season. The budget is in sharp focus, and we're bringing useful analyses and perspectives, as you have done this morning in that regard.
All right, yeah, man. Thanks so much, Marlon, and take care. I'm looking forward to it.
Indeed. All right, thank you so much. That was Keenan Faulkner, listeners, an economist, formerly employed to the Bank of Jamaica. On to other things at present, but we are running to the break, and when we come back, we'll be taking more of your calls on 212-9824 and 462-0919. Stay with us.
News Talk 93 FM. Heard everywhere.
Contact News Talk 93 FM today via phone at 876-927-1660, extension 2475, or 876-427-9955. Email us at newstalk93fmsales@gmail.com. Visit our website at www.newstalk93fm.net.
Host your next event at the UWI Regional Headquarters. Our venue, located in Mona, Kingston, features reconfigurable meeting and seminar rooms, lounges, and lawn space for events large, small, and anywhere in between. Our facilities can be tailored to suit any occasion, from stylish soirees to formal business meetings. Call 876-927-2425 or 876-455-9346 to book your event. The UE Regional Headquarters, where great minds come together.
Time to party at Smirnoff Mellow Vibes. Dance Hall Soca. With juggling by ZJ Liquid, Franco and Brush One, Bad Gallery, and Mark Chin. Smirnoff Mellow Vibes. Dance Hall Soca. Saturday, March 29 at Sabina Park. Must be 18 years or older to drink. Drink and live responsibly. ID required.
It's our business to know how much is being spent in what areas, from education to healthcare.
From roads to security, because our taxes help pay for it.
So, the national budget is our business.
The national budget is my business.
It is my business.
The national budget is my business and yours.
The national budget is everybody's business because it impacts every Jamaican. Visit the Ministry of Finance's website at mof.gov.jm for more information.
Join News Talk 93 FM this and every Sunday at 2 p.m. for On Campus, a weekly snapshot of happenings and highlights from the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies. Tune in at 2 p.m. on Sundays as we explore groundbreaking events, trailblazing trends, and interesting personalities from the UWI Mona campus, inspiring excellence, producing leaders. That's On Campus, a weekly snapshot here on News Talk 93 FM.
Are you ready for a change? Then join Naveen Harris and Dr. Neva Campbell for Transforming Lives 180, The Road to Success, every Saturday at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on News Talk 93 FM. Take the journey in praise and worship, discussions, interviews, health talk, and more. Transforming Lives 180, The Road to Success, every Saturday at 8 to 10 a.m. on News Talk 93 FM.
To participate on our programs, call, WhatsApp, or text us at 876-212-9824 or 876-462-0919. And go follow us on Instagram at News Talk 93 FM.
News Talk 93 FM. Heard everywhere.
right, back with you here. The program is Straight Up. You're tuned to News Talk 93 FM. I'm Marlon Morgan, and we are running back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Pleasant morning to you, Marlon.
Yeah, hi, good morning, John. And you should be having a very pleasant morning.
I am so happy that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, why I'm happy you said that?
Why?
It's the presentation of Jamaica's next Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't something that grabbed your attention in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
You would have said to me this morning, boy, your mouth will be very dull.
Oh, so you grabbed my attention in a positive way. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
All right, let me answer you, John, because I think you're right. Mark Golding's presentation grabs my attention in a positive way because I'm a political strategist and communicator on the other side. And Mark Golding, as he continues to do, is a gift that keeps on giving. The gentleman has come with a raft of proposals with zero costing, John. So much so that the Gleaner editorial cartoon this morning has Mark Golding caricatured in the newspaper pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Yes,
Remember now, this is the Joseph Matalan chaired. This is the Joseph Matalan chaired Gleaner company. I want you to look at the cartoon. Go ahead, my brother. Go ahead.
Joseph Matalan paper, trade paper. Joseph Matalan endorsed Mark Golding. That's what you say. Then I come like this station. What's up? What was the 1.2 billion?
What is it? Such station.
Yes, that was the 1.2 billion.
Such station. I got mad out some people. Yeah, go ahead.
The contract workers. What them about for them at that station? Where they not pay, they not pay any time to have people on contract continually. It's going to be a thing in the past. They better get ready for it. Anyway, my brother, we have better things to talk about.
What are your reactions to the budget from Marky G?
This budget reminds me of 1974 budget. It's the first budget I've seen for a very long time that is totally people-centered. It's the first budget I've seen where the government is not taking anything for themselves but giving it to the people.
Yeah.
My brother, I never know, sir. The JLP government has taken 12 years of future earnings from a company to finance the budget going on. So you have sell out the generation to come. Our people, my brother, will have an external shot down the road. That money would have already been taken. And then they go find that money.
No, but the idea, John, the idea is to program as the government has been doing. Program the fiscal affairs of the country in such a way as to have what are called fiscal buffers in place to respond to a barrel as we did last year without having to go cap in hand around the world.
No.
And you notice how quick, how swift our recovery to barrel was?
Take a pin right there. Listen to me now.
Yeah, go ahead.
That money where you take, no.
Yeah.
For 12 years, that's a loan. The money where you see on the international, the local market by issuing bonds, that's a loan. So don't come into the foolishness. But I'll tell you something. You see, you can't tell a hungry man, a man who is underemployed, although the employment figures are saying, this.
Yeah.
But a man who is underemployed, and a Wednesday being paid done. You can't tell him say he's doing well.
I want to talk about the underemployed man, John, because there's something I observed as I listened yesterday. But I made the observation even before yesterday. So yesterday just reinforced it, right? You know that the key issues confronting the country are well and truly being addressed by the government at present. So much so. But hold on, John. I don't want to. What may I say? You say something a while ago, I just want to say that thing here, and then you're going to come back in and say something else, Zin. So just watch what I'm saying right here now, Zin.
No, listen. Okay, I want to listen.
Well, all right, listen to what I say. All right, cool. All right, my G. So listen. So good are the attempts of the government to address the issues confronting the country, that the PNP, the opposition, is not necessarily able to come with credible and compelling things or alternatives to it, because the things that are going on are so good. If you think about a single road authority based on the direction in which the government is going, the PNP is planning to do precisely that. We're done already. Just this past Friday in the Senate, John, you know what we passed? We passed the Public Procurement Amendment Act of 2025. Can you imagine?
After 9 years?
It may be after 9 years. It may be after 9 years, but watch me. Prior to that, but John, prior to that, there was the establishment of speed, and we now have an efficiency minister, someone who's going to be focusing intensely on the matter of the bureaucracy, the unwieldy bureaucracy in our public sector.
A little too late, my God. Listen to me. Look here now. You see, right now, the lands that NAT have built house man, land them.
Who for land them?
Yeah.
Some of them are GOJ lands.
All right, the majority of them are government lands. And yet still, you, the government, our man work a house, and we have pay for that same land. Well, it will be.
Isn't that how market economy works, John?
My brother, listen to me.
Yeah.
I think easy for the people. Because
that's a good segue to this question, John. How can it be, or let me ask the JPESCO question, John. How come, after almost 5 years as opposition leader, Mark Golding came to present his flagship plan as to why Jamaicans should vote for him as Prime Minister in the country and not present a costing to those plans? How do you reconcile that?
Are you talking about cost now?
The cost.
All the money is here. What do not do? No matter what the cost.
John, let's say all the money.
If you can waste $20 billion up Corner Regional Habitat.
There's no money at Cornwall Regional being wasted, John. When Cornwall is finished, as will the Western Child and Adolescent Hospital be, it will be a first-class facility.
I believe in you. Would I realize that?
Say again?
Delroy Chang, when you always Chang say, would you mention that not resonating? Because people not believing what you're saying.
Well, let me tell you how I operate, John. You want to hear how I operate?
Speak.
I'm a KC man. So you see, if at first my messaging does not succeed, guess what I do as a natural Fortis man? I try and try and try again. That's how I live my life. The brave may fall, but never yield. Never yield. Anyway, I have to run to another call, I'm J. I'll be here tomorrow, John. And you can call back tomorrow, and you can call back on Friday again, at which time the Prime Minister would have spoken and you'd have heard some real things.
Do you realize that, Mr. say nationwide, Mr. say you start really, now I realize I always want to waste some time for your view on it, because you're not the structure, you're not the many callers, you're not improving things.
Listen, that's your assessment. How much traction market you get?
I think the man more airtime, precious airtime to use you than anything else.
Oh, I see what I mean. All right, big up yourself, my friend. Good. All right, that was John Pollock. One of those ardent PNP supporters. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Go ahead with your intervention this morning.
Yes, man. I called to ventilate something that I've been mulling over for a long while. I just cannot give kudos to Peter Phillips as many people are doing. The reason why. Was he in the cabinet at the time with Pattison?
That is correct.
Was he there when Pattison divorced the IMF?
Yes, so Peter Phillips should have been a cabinet minister since, was it 95, 94? Prior to that, he was a parliamentary secretary, or he was at the office of the prime minister at one point. But certainly a cabinet minister for several years. At one point, transport minister, at one point health minister, and at another point minister of national security, under whom Jamaica became the murder capital of the world. But I note where you're going, caller. You're saying he was there during the destructive period.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right. And my premise, as I mulled over the situation where people in the country, and probably you too, are giving him kudos for what he undergone where the IMF is concerned. Now, if I have a woman, put it this way,
yeah,
and she might not be, let me say, the beauty or the most educated woman, so to speak. But we are getting along. But I see somebody else on the outside, and then I diss her and go after that other person. No, I might find it that it does not work out with the other person. I want to return back to the other woman. Then any condition that she set, if I want to re-establish a relationship, I have to bow my knees. You get what I'm saying? So Patterson drove away the IMF, told the IMF, Tata.
Yeah.
Right. And made governance in the country hard. So when Bruce Golding took over the country, he was burdened, I believe, to pay the public sectors, correct me if I'm wrong, to the extent where one of the, I think she was one of the union delegates, Edith Allwood, even went and
Edith Allwood, and it's not the time, yeah?
Yes, and went and fasted and all kind of crap. And thereafter, the very same PMP had to put people on freeze. Their salary, couldn't pay them. Am I right, sir?
That's right.
So when they won back the election and returned now to the IMF, then any condition the IMF set, they will have to boycott it to the IMF.
They would have to abide by it, yes, or to comply, rather.
I use a nice word, abide, sir. They have to boycott it.
Well,
yes. So when they come and talk about he went through whatever he had gone through, they were the one that set the stage, this foundation for the embarrassment. So now they return to government and want back the IMF to be their sweetheart again. So any condition the IMF take, lay down, they have to boycott it to it. So that is the reason why I can't give kudos, because you can't burn down your house and then you build it back and the material costs you more than it cost you before. I have me if big you up and praise you for building back the house.
That's right.
No. So I've been mulling over this thing for a long while. And I'm
all right, well, thanks for your perspective this morning, sir. I appreciate it. But I do wish to point out that two things can happen at the same time, or two things can be true. Dr. Phillips was as much a part of Jamaica's destructive past as he was a part of Jamaica's march at present toward, more sustainable and prosperous future in terms of the reforms between 2013 and 2016 February. But thanks for the call, caller. We're on to another.
I have something else to say about.
Well, I wish to take another call. We have the program tomorrow again and on Friday.
We can't begin up, sir.
All right. Well, to take a minute to make the other point you wanted to make. Say your other point a minute.
I listened Crawford at the opening of the TLP office somewhere in St. Elizabeth.
Yeah, Junction St. Elizabeth, sir, yeah?
And I heard him spoke about in what he was saying, that he's studying rich people and him want to be rich. Now I am putting it to the Jamaican people, be careful of, they better be aware of the number 2 FinSAC that is coming.
That's an excellent characterization, sir, because elsewhere, well, it was on social media on Monday night, I made that very observation, that there are a set of folks, based on what they're proposing, we may well have FinSac 2.0.
And what do you call it, the housing trust, the housing thing that Chilade, what was it, the
Outer Mini, it was the lands occupied by Outer Mini, the Outer Mini experience.
Right,
anyway, all right, thank you for your intervention this morning, sir. I have to run. Going to another call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up. Hello, good morning. You're on the program.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Morgan, and good morning to the host.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, back on the program next time, man.
Yes, sir. What are your thoughts this morning?
Yeah, I'm calling on the behalf of Eastern Westmoreland. Water program. That is Petersville, Long Hill, Well Road, all the way to Beeson Spring.
Yeah.
Yes. What happened with that water system? There's a well that dig there. These people have water for many years. That's where I'm from. My people are from here. But that well has dig and tested water find there, and from somewhere in November, them find water down there. And there's a meeting shortly that keep there with Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Chuck. Mr. Chuck tell the people them say that he gonna speak to Mr. Matthew to see how fast them can get the water there, because the people them get fed up over there because there's a lot of go and come. Everybody is saying that them can't get no water and everywhere getting water, which is true. You know, so the people them waiting because based on the what I understand, they was told so they would get water sometime in March, which is this month. And then what they're still saying that our centers getting water all over the place getting, and them cannot see nothing, them not see nobody from Water Commission, so they want to know what the problem, because
so have you for example, in as much as you're calling this program, have you called the NWC?
No, I don't call NWC because Mr. Lawrence in dialogue with them straight along, and they say they're coming, and they're not coming nowhere. So it's like the people them get fed up now, because based on what I get to understand now, the people them decide so they're gonna take to the street, they're gonna block the road and demonstrate. But it's like somebody been talking to them and things like that, so them just say them hold on and to till
to see if that bears any fruit, to see if those efforts bear any fruit. Yeah.
Yes. They're just waiting on this month here on the presentation from the Prime Minister, which is tomorrow. And then but they've been calling, and Mr. Chuck says he's gonna speak to Mr. Matthew, and Mr. Matthew said he was gonna send somebody down there to look at it 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks now.
Well, all right, I'm gonna ask you to do something, or suggest you do something.
I don't know, nobody can.
Take this platform to appeal to the NWC to come and give this issue some urgent attention. You have the platform, sir. Make your appeal to the NWC. Call on them to intervene.
Go ahead now.
Yes, sir. You can go ahead. Press gas.
Yes. Good morning, NWC. I'm a caller from Eastern Westmoreland, Petersville. Yes. The well that they got there by Mr. Daniel Lawrence. The water has been tested. You people come on, and they find water there and saying that they're gonna get water by March, early March is this month. Today is the 19th of March, and everybody get fed up because they say they're waiting too long now. Many years passed. People have to buy water like a 600 gallon tank, costing over $15,000. So right there and then everybody get fed up and they say they're not waiting no longer. So they're gonna block the road. So please, before this blocking the road start, I beg you to
intervene. All right.
Come in and see it. Please, I beg you now.
All right. Thank you so much for that appeal. I trust that the people of the National Water Commission would have heard loud and clear. All right. Thank you so much for that, caller. Good.
Have a great day. Thank you very much.
We have lines available, callers. Remember, the numbers are 212-9824 or 462-0919. There's an editorial cartoon here in the Gleaner, as I put to John. It caricatures Mark Golding, opposition leader here, and members of the public. Invariably, this is essentially a cartoon which is commenting on Mark Golding's presentation in the Parliament last afternoon. He is pictured here pulling the proverbial rabbit, a rabbit out of a hat. Because when you are planning to do the things that he is proposing that a PNP government led by him would do, at the same time when he is planning to give up, yes, so much revenue, you really wonder how him can possibly manage to make it happen. He must be a guy who can just magically make money appear. Morning caller, welcome to the program.
Morning, Marlon.
Yes. Yes, sir. Morning. Go ahead with your contribution this morning.
Marlon, the first thing that becomes a casualty is truth.
When what? When what
becomes a casualty in war is truth.
I see, very well.
And that is what is happening as you speak on this station. There's a war on, and the truth has become a casualty.
Give one example of that. Just one.
Everything that you
No, not everything, man. Just give one example.
I don't have the time to you, man. I'm just going to say this to you.
Oh.
You're a young man. And your life that you live now will become a legacy years after you. You must stop this kind of what I call CIA kind of behavior when it calls chaos in a society. When you call it the Sanganistans or whatever in Nicaragua, and you cause chaos in a society. And when you cause chaos in a society, like what happened to Eventide home and people burn and throw back them body, and you said the other side do it. You must stop it, because I am saying to you, when I listen to you, and I heard, I can't believe that you're a young man, but I understand. The CIA is actively involved as I speak in Jamaica.
The CIA, the CIA board at my house.
And they have chosen certain people who they know can carry.
You understand that? No,
and it seems as if you are one of those persons.
But I am removing any doubt. I'm removing all doubt. I'm removing all doubt. I'm telling you all that the CIA, the CIA, they board at my residence.
Say that again?
The CIA boards at my residence.
Well, let me say this to you as you said that. you saw clips of thing out there on social media, and I asked you to come out and address it from your director of development and infrastructure from over education ministry. Have you addressed that?
Excellent. Let me tell you something that I'm heartened by.
I ask you, have you addressed that?
A person cannot address things that are baseless, nonsensical, and no so.
Come out and say what the person have said is not so. Sue them. I guarantee you that you have a case in the court. If you sue them.
All right. I'm going to ask you just one thing.
Ask me.
You made mention of CIA.
Yes,
so in other words,
yes.
You made mention of all that I've said on the program since morning. I wanted to just cite one example to substantiate any salvo you have fired or any point you've made in relation to me. Just one example.
I try to attack Mark Nolan and talk about Julia never thief something from you, from what thing they said. Let me say this to you. The JLP has no plan that...
All right, I'm going to ask you to pause. Madam Producer, can you cue up that 58-second audio?
No plan, no vision.
Which are the phones it is on?
They don't have the capacity nor the ability to do that. All that the JLP is...
Oh, no, well, we can't do it when you are on the call. I was going to play back the 58-second audio in your hearing.
I don't have any time for that.
You don't want it. You don't have the time for it.
I am saying to you, all that the JLP has planned to do is to create chaos in the society. No wonder false identification is running around the country.
All right.
We got the false ID. They find a place a while ago, you know, see it, where they say it have manufacturing. The false ID and young people must come go on a second voters list. We find out because when say in a stern face that the period opposition must not come to power. This is the kind of dictatorship Hitler practiced amongst the Jews from 1930 to 45.
Oh dear.
And we see Donald Trump and why Miss Marks come back? Why Miss Marks come back?
Well, Miss Marks. Miss Marks is a distinguished Jamaican who has been serving Jamaica well. She did so in the foreign services recently, and she's back now to serve in another capacity.
I went into a gas station this morning and somebody knew me. And he said, ask me why Miss Marks come up. I said, no. He said, well,
they just asked me tell you.
She publicly support Harris and Trump. So I said, because Andrew tell Andrew to take her back. Anyway, she come down at East Elon Musk now. She come run away people to their job because she actually save. So campaign and come digital. You think so we don't know. Here she come down with the whole script of Elon Musk that is doing the kind of damage to America. And she come down now. Place in the Prime Minister's office. Couldn't wait. When I'm going to go into an election, a couple of weeks.
Alright, Al, I'm gonna share something with you before I move to another call. I'm gonna share one thing with you. Well, Al, I wanted to listen. I want to share something with you.
Because
oh, you don't want to listen. All right, because I really wanted to share something with you before I move to another call. But all right, my brother. All right, you can take Al off the call now. All right. So what I wanted to share with Al in the 10 seconds we have is that when Al speaks about the CIA, he talks about Audrey Marks and he says, I'm telling Pierre this, that from morning and talking this and that about Marky G. Al is just underscoring how much of a beating, yes, how much of a calling out is happening as it relates to an ongoing exercise in the parliament now, the budget debate, and the fact that folks have come with grand promises, yes, but are not costing it and showing us how it could credibly work, which is why many members of the public have characterized the opposition leader as Santa Mark, and they're describing his presentation as a run-with-it budget and a desperation budget, essentially a raft of unrealistic proposals. And the Gleaner, chaired by Mark Golding's own friend, Joseph Matalon, has an editorial cartoon by Lasme this morning where Mark Golding is caricatured pulling a rabbit out of a hat. You cannot get any more spot on or instructive than that. So when Al speaks about CIA, it gives you a clear assessment and understanding as to what is happening. Hemorrhaging badly. Commentator. Morning, David.
Morning.
All right, thanks for joining us, my brother. We are essentially continuing to assess and digest the contribution to the budget debate, the last going into what is expected to be a general election in a few weeks or months' time, from the opposition leader. Yes? I want to start out, David, with your reactions, your own assessment, in as much as I did with Keenan Faulkner earlier. Your assessment of Mark Golding's presentation last afternoon.
Well, as a marketer by profession, Marlon, I saw the value in what Mr. Golding attempted to put forward yesterday in his presentation. He came to sell an idea.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fluff put into his presentation for the sole purpose of selling persons on his vision. He said he was championing change, and for that reason he did a lot of anecdotal references throughout his presentation to give a glimpse into what he believes his stewardship of Jamaica would look like. He must get commendation for that, and I think the PNP in general have taken that approach in a lot of substance into marketing, but less so into the actual meat of the matter, and that is where I will give him a failing grade. The presentation lacked the numerical
credentials
and substantial value that you would expect in a budget debate. Most of what he put forward didn't even have timelines. In marketing, when you're presenting something, you try to stick to what they call the SMART template. So is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it time specific? Right? And of course, is it realistic? And if you were to grade his presentation based on that template, he would drop below the bar on a number of them. But I believe that they were aware of this, and they thought to better use the time, as it was probably the greatest audience of the Jamaican people that he would get in the parliament before the election. So he thought it best to use the time to sell their manifesto, because I think that's what it was. I think this was, essentially a manifesto more than a budget presentation.
Yeah, and
spoke.
No, continue. Complete the thought.
Yeah.
Complete the thought.
So more thought was given into where we're going to be giving things, and less thought on how we're going to be funding them. More thought was given onto what this hypothetical leadership under Mark Golding would be like, rather than addressing the substantive matters that were presented by the Minister of Finance.
But there's the other side. There's the other side of the ledger, David, because as you quite rightly indicated a while ago, you saw much being said in relation to the things that a hypothetical Mark Golding incumbency as Prime Minister would entail, what he'd proposed to do. But there are a number of things, a number of areas in relation to which they are proposing to seed revenue, not least the 11 billion from the NHD. So at the very same time that they're planning to give everybody $500,000, young people $500,000 toward NHD down payment, at the same time where they're proposing to move the employer's tax credit from 30% to 40%, seeding more revenue. Yes, they are essentially suggesting that they're gonna be doing the suite of wonderful things that we heard from the opposition leader last afternoon. How do you reconcile the two? Giving up so much on the revenue side, but yet doing so much more, or proposing to do so much more on the expenditure side?
And to be fair, Marlon, I agree. And very little thought was given to as I said, the timeline for some of these things. I heard criticism from members of the opposition bench, including Julian Robinson, about the phased approach being taken to the income tax threshold by the government, as announced by the Minister of Finance.
Yeah.
However, when you look at some of the things that they have implemented, it lacked so much detail, but also any form of timeline. And, if you're going to be selling me something, I want to know, in essence, what's the warranty on it? How long do I have to wait on this? What's the delivery time? What's the delivery date? So you promise and you say, okay, we're going to be giving you 1 degree per household, right?
Yeah.
You don't state, okay, what is the cost that this is going to be at to the people of Jamaica. You don't state, okay, which year you're going to start this. Are you going to start it in year 1 of your stewardship, year 2, year 4? Are you going to need a second term before you can start this? None of this was highlighted. So, it's unclear if this is an immediate priority of Golding and his team, or if it is something that is futuristic to say, okay, we're going to be working towards this. There's no timeline.
Yeah, and to the extent
are expected to vote on something that they don't know if it will be a reality in 4 years, in 8 years, in 12 years.
And if you juxtapose, David, last Thursday and yesterday Tuesday, with last week Tuesday, where the incumbent finance minister went to great lengths essentially to set out her store on, as it relates to fiscal responsibility, fiscal discipline. She mentioned a number of times in that presentation that she is not a part of the Run With It crew, and that the JLP government of which she's a part will seek to remake the connection with David. The JLP government of which she's a part, listeners, is essentially in the business of frugally and responsibly managing Jamaica's affairs. So soon as we reconnect with David, we're going to get his perspectives on that particular issue. So, David, I was simply making the point that when we juxtapose Favor's, reiteration of fiscal discipline with what we heard from Mark Golding and Julian Robinson last Thursday, we're trying to get a sense as to how these two things reconcile, if they may be reconciled any at all, because it cannot be that we are expressing and committing to fiscal discipline and being fiscally responsible, while at the same time, Yes, while at the same time, the very plans and proposals being espoused are things that may be undercutting that fiscal prudence and fiscal discipline to which Jamaica is committed. Because when you consider the raft of things that the opposition leader, as did Julian Robinson, mention in their respective contributions to the budget debate, and when you juxtapose it with what they are proposing in terms of ceding revenue, giving up revenue, you really have to wonder whether the opposition leader is a magician, because that is how he is being caricatured this morning in the Gleaner newspaper. Last May, in a cartoon this morning, has the opposition leader caricatured as a magician, clutching a hat and holding that cap in hand, or that hat in hand rather. He is pulling a rabbit out of that hat. Yes? We have restored our connection with David. David, I'm just seeking your assessment or your response to the degree to which Favor's outline of fiscal discipline stacks up against that of Mark Golding, when they are saying that they're going to be fiscally responsible, but their proposals are essentially going in the opposite direction. In fact, putting Jamaica's fiscal program at risk were they to be minted as Jamaica's government.
So there was a long history lesson from both Mark Golding and Julian Robinson about the contributions of the People's National Party towards the fiscal position that Jamaica currently finds itself in. With them, scraping to find ways to claim credit even for the current status of Jamaica's economy. On the positive side, note that they're not taking any credit for what is being done to correct the issues, what you call the legacy issues of previous administrations. They're only interested in, the good stuff that's being written up. And in that history lesson, they did, tie it back to, Portia Simpson Miller and Peter Phillips many, many times over, and their relationship with the IMF. So they did that. I think Julian went even further to state that, this baby is, paternal. The PNPs and, not Andrew Holness and his government. So they did spend a lot of time trying to take credit for the fiscal stability of Jamaica. And I think that is because they realized that credit is due to the Holness administration for that, and that a lot of people, it is one of the factors that people are grateful for as it relates to this back as much of that capital from and spend considerable time doing so. In the budget. But contrasting when you look at the way in which they went about their presentations, because if you are, putting up yourself as a champion of change, then one would assume you would do so in a fiscally responsible manner. Now, with all the give backs that you proposed in your presentation, you made no mention of how you plan to fill
the gaps or the
gaps or the void that would be left. You're giving back over $11 billion to the NHT that has consistently been a part of the budget support for years. And at the same time, you announced a slew of measures to come from the same NHT without outlining what is going to make up for the shortfall. You announced increase in salaries across different areas of the public sector and increase in benefits such as concessions. You announced so much new measures and so much expansion. You announced billions in a program for rural students in schools, and then billions again for a feeding program for students, whether they are qualified or on path or in need or not. And then trillions in university education. You announced trillions in equipment for each hospital to be diagnostically fully equipped. But no mention was made of how these things would be funded. Now, the tax question will always loom over the PNP because of their history. And to be fair to them, at no point during either of the presentations did I hear any of them commit to no new taxes. And then, you have the utterances of Damian Crawford or the slips of Damian Crawford, and of course the
embattled PNP General Secretary.
Yes, saying that taxes, they will add on a thing here and add on a thing there. So you're not sure if they plan to raise these revenue taxes, but one would expect them to outline, being fiscally responsible, how these things will be funded, because fiscal discipline is not just saying that we're going to do this without breaking the bank or without breaking the budget. You have to outline and make it transparent for the opposition, for the government, for the fiscal commissioner, for the business community, right? Because we're in a market economy and everybody has to know where funding is coming from. How do I need to adjust my spending? How do I need to adjust my personal finances based on what the government is putting forward? And that's the whole purpose of these budget debates. So if you're going to come and say, okay, I'm going to do all of these things without giving me any financial, fiscal, credible arguments to say, okay, we're going to move funding from this, we're going to shut down this program, or we're going to increase this tax, or we're going to, stop this program and continue this program. None of what you say sits or resonates with the public, because all you're doing is making, a pie in the sky promise.
In the 5 minutes we have left, David, I want to take you to this important aspect, because as I sat last afternoon and listened to Mark Golding, one of the things that jumped out at me is the degree to which so much of what they are articulating, so much of the issues confronting Jamaica that they are seeking to address are things that are already in train. These guys are speaking about efficiency, for example, and the state of the public bureaucracy on the very, in the very aftermath of the Prime Minister putting in place an efficiency minister against the backdrop of speed, and in the aftermath of the just passed Public Procurement Amendment Act, among other things, to include what is happening on the agriculture side in terms of irrigation equipment and of course cold storage, and what is also happening in relation to road maintenance and the ultimate intent of the wholeness-led government to institute a single road authority. What do you make of the PNP having had so many years in opposition, but what they're coming with in terms of prescriptions being things for them in the main that are already in train under the incumbent government?
So I think that was intentional, Marlon. And as I said, more effort is being placed on the marketing aspect of it than the fiscal aspect of it. And what Mark is seeking to do is to claim a lot of what the current administration is doing as either his recommendation or things that he will be putting in place. We saw that when the current Deputy Managing Director of IMF was our finance minister. We saw where several policies which were implemented by Dr. Clark, the PNP would take to social media and say, we suggested this, or we were the first ones who suggested this, or thanks for listening to our suggestions for this, without any concrete, evidence to show that they were the ones who put it first forward. And, I think a similar approach is being used here to try to claim credit for, let's say, efficiency moving forward, hoping, banking on the ignorance of the masses, to say, oh, I heard Mark said something about that. As I said, this is one of the grandest stages that he will get leading up to the election. So as much as he can speak about things that are already happening that the public isn't aware of, he will use the opportunity to do so in an attempt to gain some credit and some relevance from it. We saw where Julian did the same thing, and Minister Green put out a video to say, hey, listen, these things are already happening in the agricultural sector. But if they're already happening, one would ask the question, why then would the opposition, put forward 2 speeches, 2 presentations saying that these are things that they're going to do? To me, from a marketing standpoint, it shows, one, the good work of the government, meaning the government is performing so admirably that the only thing that we can do is, one, claim things that they're already doing as promises, and 2, make promises that are not immediately realistic. So I think it's something that they have weighed in on, and they decided that, listen, we know that some persons are going to come out and say this is already being done, that's already being done, but these are good things for the people of Jamaica, and we have to get our name tethered to to it.
Indeed. So much so, David, that earlier in the program, I played a particular bit of audio, in making the point that there's a particular growth strategy, a growth enabling framework that Julian Robinson in his presentation articulated. Mark underscored it yesterday. But essentially, 4 of the E's that Julian is suggesting is essentially mirroring Wholeness's 5 E's that he articulated in August of 2012. I'm inviting a quick 1-minute comment on that, because Wholeness's 5 E's were education, economy, energy, efficiency, and environment. And Julian Robinson's 4 E's are energy, efficiency, emerging economies, and education. All of them are Wholeness's E's except for environment, and Mark replaced that with an E yesterday, environment, with the E, ethics. Your quick 1-minute reaction as we run to the 11:30 break, David.
Yeah, so I mean, to that I'll say it's a continuation of the strategy I believe is being implemented from a political standpoint. They say if you can't beat them, join them, and imitation is the best form of flattery. I think that the PNP is aware that after losing 2 times at the poll, their strategy moving forward for the past almost decade has not been working. And so they have decided that, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to step into wholeness issues and see how well wholeness goes up against wholeness, basically. So I think they've spent considerable time, mapping the political career of Andrew Holness, and they've seen what works, and they're picking out meticulously the things that the Jamaican public has responded well to, and they're now crafting it in their way, orange washing it, for want of a better phrase, and saying, hey, look, this is what we're presenting to you, the Jamaican people.
Competing with you by taking onto themselves a version of you.
Precisely.
Excellent characterization there. Instructive insights. Thank you so much, David, for your perspectives. Thank you. Listeners do appreciate it, I would imagine. That was David. Listeners, he is a public affairs commentator and a marketing specialist. We're going to take the 11:30 break and come back with more of your calls on 212-9824 and 462-0919. Stay with us. Sir, how are you?
I can't tell you something good enough. I don't even know. Because I can't go to the hospital to find out, because I have to go sit down for the hospital bench maybe till making over dead all of that. Because that must have no idea. Right? And some of them think them in a year, them think they are address. You understand? And after wholeness manage the economy so well, you can't get bed in the hospital, you can't get oxygen in the hospital, you can't get medication. And them thing there, and the economy managed so well, and those are the things that really bother me.
So Marsh, the expansion at Spanish Town, the expansion at UWI that is happening at UWI and Spanish Town, do you anticipate that to the extent that will improve and expand rather the bed stock and of course the services that will help to militate against the wait time in the wheelchairs at hospitals?
And 9 year now, the JLP under Andrew Holness and Tufton.
Yeah.
Do something down
Cornwall Regional, and it can done on 2027, and it start out at 5 billion according to them at now at 28 billion. You know.
So them the way I go do now.
Yeah.
If that is his track record, when them they go done.
So the truth is, Marsh, if that Cornwall Regional intervention had commenced in 2006 when it first came to the fore, yes, 9 years from 2006 would have essentially taken us to what, 2015? We would have probably completed.
You know the germs
Cornwall Regional from them.
The germs where you suffer from?
What's that?
The people vote out the PNP because the PNP wasn't doing good.
Yeah.
And who promise to come and do better. And from who come, all who can do. And look back like that wife and where the PNP do. That's why they did vote out the PNP and vote.
All right, so can I say this to you now, Marsh?
Well, worse.
Can I say this to you now? Yeah, can I say this to you now?
Rubbish.
All right, can I say this to you now? Because I heard it just now. and I'll say this to you, Marsh. Cornwall Regional suffered from some offensive fumes, right? There was a challenge with the structure of the building and, of course, what was happening with respect to its air conditioning. When the team went in to effect repairs, they, quite frankly, Marsh, didn't understand the magnitude and extent of the issues that obtained at Cornwall Regional.
Hold on. Big engineer, top class engineer. Remember,
says air conditioning issues they went into addressing them, Marshy. But let me continue the point, and let me just, because I want to benefit you and the listeners by saying this. When they went in to effect the repairs and correct the challenges that existed at Cornwall Regional, they kept coming up on more issues that resulted in and necessitated a gutting, as it were, of that building and a rebuild of the hospital, which is what has been happening. So there's no budget overrun at Cornwall Regional, Marsh. There has been a considerable rescoping of the works at Cornwall Regional. Yes, sir. I'm with you. Yeah, man, I'm here.
If me and you did meet up one place out of road and you talk, mother tell you we have to stop chat. But it was up on national radio. Don't ever take the Jamaican people for fool. Let me leave that for the time being, because we have better sense of
no, but what I've said is not so. What aspect of what I've said?
Because you soon cut off, you soon cut me off.
No, man, we're not cut you off, man. What aspect of what I've said don't go so?
Why the report on SSL? Why the government is hiding that report? They get it.
No, watch me now.
Hiding it. And why they are hiding the FinSac report? Why are they hiding
so Sir Marsh,
you can't tell me why.
Sir Marsh, I'm going to speak to two things now. You asked about SSL and you asked about FinSac. So listen for the response now. An independent set of forensic examiners, yes, undertook an investigation into this whole SSL debacle. The company Nigel Clark contracted Kroll, right? Independent set of people. They came in and they did a professional job. The report that those people have, Marsh, may well form evidentiary material in proceedings in court, particularly in the criminal court, pursuant to criminal proceedings. And as such, the report is not being released because you do not want a compromise of those proceedings in the court, because people must be guaranteed and assured of a fair trial. In this case, one person is before the courts at present, that being Miss Jean and Panton. We don't know who else may be joining her and putting on short pants.
Nobody is Nago.
Oh, you have the what number is playing at 1 o'clock? Because since you have the gift of clairvoyance, can you tell me what number going to play at 1 o'clock? Raise some money in the day.
Why the FinSac report?
All right. So FinSac. Yeah, man. Good point. Good point, Sir Marsh. Good point, Sir Marsh. The FinSac commissioners did not conclude their report, notwithstanding budgetary support that they got. Right. However, they did not conclude their report. They did not present. They did not output a final report. They had drafts. But man, you asked me a question and I'm providing the response. Marsh, you asked me a question, my brother, and I am furnishing you and by extension others in Radio Land with the response. The FinSac commissioners, Marsh, as Nigel Clark articulated last year, quite frankly, yes, he spoke last year at the same time when Nigel Clark contributed to the budget debate. When he opened the debate, he made mention of the FinSac situation in that there were drafts of a report that had been prepared, as it were, by the then commissioners. The FinSac commissioners did not complete a substantial report or a substantive report, and as such, that draft of chapters, because that is what Nigel Clark conveyed, the draft of chapters that were being penned by the FinSac commissioners, in addition to other bits of literature and evidentiary material, were going to be collated and made available on our website for academicians, journalists, ordinary Jamaicans and civilians alike to peruse same and undertake, their own bit of work and distilling of information from it. And that undertaking which Nigel Clark gave in March of 2024 has since been made good on, because further to that in 2024, we had the launch, as it were, of that FinSac website, where all that evidentiary material, where all of that bit of literature pertaining to the FinSac Commission of Inquiry is now situate. And of course, the university, enterprising academics are being encouraged to take interest in this matter and come with their books and journal articles and all kinds of things in relation to that. So that is the response march on the question of FinSac and on the question of SSL. Do we have another call on the line? All right, so the lines are available. Callers 212-9824-462-0919. So Marsh elected to come off the call because he's saying he doesn't want to hear anything further from me. He thought he was going to ask me a question to which I had no response, but he was unpleasantly mistaken. Yes? Now, the opposition leader speaking at a presentation political rally of Paul Buchanan, the man who is set to do battle with the Prime Minister Andrew Holness in St. Andrew West Central. When the opposition leader spoke at that event, he referenced SSL, but in all of what he said about SSL and Usain Bolt and him being a legend and sprint icon, all of which are indeed true and so on, right? He did not give an undertaking that a PNP government led by him would give back Usain Bolt his money, because he's in no position to give such an undertaking. Yes? So for all the bombast, for all the browbeating and the utterances, or for all the PNPs talking on SSL, what Mark Golding said in Andrew Holness's West Central St. Andrew is that the PNP will leave no stone unturned. The very thing that the government is doing at present, getting in independent forensic auditor, doing the investigation, having FID do its work, and turning over a file to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, yes? All of these things mean no stone is being left unturned. And the same thing that has been happening is the same thing Mark Golding is committing to come and do, to leave no stone unturned. He's not going to take up a single dollar of our tax dollars to give to Usain Bolt to restore this 2 billion Jamaican dollars to our sprint legend and sporting icon. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program. Hello, good morning. You're on air. You're live on air, caller. Hello. We seem to be having a challenge with our caller here. Gotta seek to sort out that connection. Phone lines are still open. We go up to midday. You may call in at 212-9824 or 462-0919. You're listening, of course, to Straight Up. I'm Marlon Morgan here on the sound of News Talk 93 FM. And this is the day after Mark Golding, our opposition leader, would have made his contribution to the budget debate. And as I did earlier, I would like to repeat something I said, because the opposition leader added an E to the existing set of E's that Julian Robinson espoused last Thursday. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
Morning, Marlon. Wagwan.
Morning, Africa. I am fine. And how are you?
The President, I'm going to give thanks for it. Good to be here, you know?
Indeed. Go ahead, my brother. What is on your mind this morning?
What do you say now? We need some work for doing the constituency, them, you know. I check out our Desmond Mackenzie constituency.
You see in front of the Denham Town place, dig up there, sir, to treat with the sewage issue?
You go through the constituency, Marlon?
Not entirely. I go to the market from time to time, and I pass through that route. When I'm going to Parliament, for example, when I go to Senate on a Friday morning, I traverse Spanish Town Road and make my way along North Street, then onto Duke Street ultimately?
You need to go up on them inner road that we are in a Tivoli around the place, eh?
All right, so you're suggesting that be done? What are you observing?
So me also know if Mr. Mackenzie could have spent some money in the constituency, Marlon.
All right. So you know that the Spark program is intent largely on treating with some community roads, right?
Yeah, but we see that I do, Marlon.
No, man, but so it has started in some places, and it is gonna commence with the mobilization of heavy equipment in other constituencies, because in all 63 constituencies, Africa, work will be done pursuant to the Spark program, because on an equity basis, there's a formulation that applies, and work will be done in all 63 constituencies on main roads as well as quite considerably community roads.
Cause if some work doing on my brethren, you know, if you have box or anything and a defense or anything, you know, just call panel. It's like how the right talk, you talk my house for them and I say, brethren, you know, just some work in a brethren. You did hear him?
No, I'm not sure. I'm recalling the reference.
Yes, man, tell them on themselves, do some work, man. Do some work in the constituency, them brethren. The people them need a little development in them constituency. You know, all them infrastructure there. The poorer people them need them little thing, my brethren. And them we are depend on for voting, you know. Can Mr. Marlon, good to be here, yeah?
All right, caller. Hear you loud and clear, because nothing beats work, as you say, and that's why I am particularly happy that considerable work is going on in many communities across Jamaica, in many areas. As you would have seen, just this past Friday, Africa, the Prime Minister was in about 3 areas commissioning, in other words, turning on a water system in 3 different communities in St. Elizabeth. Yes? And that is a feature of this Prime Minister's incumbency. Almost every Friday, he is out and about at some location or the other across the country, either turning on a water system, handing out houses under the Hope Social Housing Program, or of course, opening or cutting the ribbon for a new company that has come in, for example, PriceSmart Portmore, or Fontana Portmore, or that facility in Draxall, or as he did a few Fridays ago, the expanded Grand Palladium Hotel over there in Hanover, having opened the newly created Princess Resorts in Hanover as well. I gather we have another call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
Marlon, morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
I heard you while I was talking to Marsh. And Marsh asked some question, but I will not ask you what Marsh asked you.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about a whistleblower that came out of Digicel and gave a comprehensive interview to some people, I won't call them name, from overseas who are into the blogging, Ratigan and them, and they grilled him. And one of the things that fascinates me, he said he never see one PNP man at SSL, not one person as a PNP, and he called the names of who he saw there. I say this, why should Mark Golding promise Gold to give him both money when Mark Golding and PNP people not have nothing to do with SSL?
Excellent question.
Well, we want to hear this about SSL because in a belief because people are talking about SSL, them are talk against them are talk for Bolt. The reality 100 other people lost their earning inside of that place.
But I want to respond. By saying this.
Let me take one. Let me just someone else say. A lot of other people lost their earning in that place. My man take them on their money, buy big house, and them have contractor putting in a political party.
So I'm going to say this to you, Marsh. I'd rather, if you know of anyone who took Bolt's money or that of any other investor, including that 70-year-old elderly person in Julian Robinson's Southeast St. Andrew, kindly make your way quick o'clock down at the police to provide a report.
Let me tell you something. I don't have to if. Why Mr. Cross there? And them really got a place there. Why they really got a Canada? Why? You can't answer that because I'm
I'm not Mr. Cross.
When you are right, you don't run away from truth. But because who was treasurer at the time and find himself an open account in SSL, but I tell you something. I want you to tell you I like you very much, because it's a KC man. But you're going out too far, and because you've gone out too far, you can't come back. You're kicking the can too far down. Because when this bus, you don't even understand.
That's what I mean. When SSL bus. Anyway, let me go back to the foremost point I had made, Sir Al. You see, the narrative, the very crux of the arguments coming from the PNP on this SSL matter would suggest that there is something beyond what this government has done in relation to handling this SSL issue that they will do.
Have you ever spoken to her wife and husband around one executive and parliamentarian? How one out of St. Thomas, that is the biggest cronyism ever happened on the planet Earth since God destroyed heaven and earth in Genesis chapter 6. Well, you think that PNP could have a wife and husband and run a parish and a run executive and a parliament?
Well, brothers and brothers though. So we had Douglas Manley and Michael Manley. We had Dean Peart and Michael Peart. Al. We had Dean Peart and Michael Peart. We had Michael Manley and Douglas Manley. We have had many family permutations
and Michael Manley and Douglas Manley was in one parish and control it. And I worship at your church. Don't tell me some little rubbish when you talk to me. Tell me where. All of who you are called, they were in one constituency control one parish.
Listen, just like Michael Peart and Dean Peart, Andrew Holness and Juliet Holness are the products of the people of Jamaica. In other words, it is people. Let me restate what I said. They are the products. Hold on, I don't want us to speak at the same time, my friend. So let me say what I'm saying, and then you can come back in with your point. I am saying Andrew Holness and Juliet Holness, just like Michael Peart and Dean Peart, just like Michael Manley and Douglas Manley, are the products of the people of Jamaica. In other words, they are the results of the voting exercise that we have in this country.
Let me just further on saying, have Dean Peart and Michael Peart ever been Prime Minister and Speaker of the House, and one is the head of Housing Trust, and one of the House, and when they build the house, one send it to that one because I want them to buy the house. I'm
speaking them double story there from one of the house and one sell house to the one there. Alright, anyway.
Marlon,
yes, sir. Let me answer this. There's something I want to ask you, Al. Based on what you heard from our good friend Marky G, right? Our good friend, the opposition leader, Mark Jefferson Golding, more commonly called Marky G. Based on what we heard from him yesterday,
yes.
How pleased are you with the fact that he outlined a whole heap of promises?
I am very pleased. I please like a please push. Very pleased.
But you never done ask the please, man. You never done ask you something, Marshy. Hear me, Al. I was asking you, why didn't he see it fit to appropriately provide a costing for the raft of things he's promising to do?
Let me tell you why. Firstly, you don't understand what presentation is about. You have never been to that.
No, I don't understand a thing what presentation is about. I'm a total dunce.
What it does, what a budget presentation do, is to look at the possibility of what possibly can happen. And when you do that, I'm going to come in nationwide foolishness because them is discreditable. Them are JLP if in the government.
No, I can't talk for myself, man. No guy can't talk for me.
Because you hear Judge this with this one you come and say with it.
No, man. Remember.
Judge Davis is not credible. Everybody blood him out. He is just working for his advertising dollar for the time by Jamaica House. In the environment and the budget is and that. And that has to do. When private sector do not invest in your company, it means some government is the biggest 89.5%. So you have to talk with government. Who own nationwide? Who are the biggest investor? Is that sellout? So
you're saying is the government owns nationwide?
The media is a sellout to the government.
So Al, you're saying is the government owns nationwide? That's what you're asserting?
Members of the government, yes. Yes. And you know, make sure you pass the company document again. That one up on the table, so. The one with the issue.
We know that Fiverr has been an investor long before she became involved in the body politics.
You say you're honest, boy. And then, you want me to say so? You want me to say so? Well, we'll have. You want me to tell the next one?
Yeah, man, go ahead with the next one, because I'm finding all of this quite entertaining.
I want you to succeed in media. You know, I am the master. People told me that I am the master of communication.
I'm going to draw closer to your feet then.
Come down to politics. And I don't want you to come. You can't say truth for what it is, but you don't have no clue about
I'm going to draw closer to your feet, Sir Al, to become,
because guess what?
Yeah.
When you come this morning and I talk about buckling Jonathan Campbell, Jonathan Campbell have anything outstanding in the court that you put up till October to answer? Hold up. Look at it, me and that here. Jonathan Campbell is before the court trying out to struct out that which he has initiated as a legislator.
You know, Dan Campbell has several other problems, including litigation with Darvas. And Dan Campbell has Bangarang with Karen Cross. So Dan Campbell has many problems, you see? Why am I to run from Bamboo and Senton to go and take up refuge in Eastern Westmoreland? Huh?
Well, that's actually everyone from to go all over. I end up this one question in the South Lanka.
You mean why Dr. Chang is reducing murders by 30% in the country?
I'm Bartlett.
Anyway, I'm up on my sign out here, but call me tomorrow and ensure that we're on Friday as well.
What you get treated?
Hold on, man. Just listen. There's no Senate as far as I gather come this Friday. So I'll be happy. I'll be delighted to have you keep me company come Friday when we're on again. And we're on tomorrow, Thursday.
Tomorrow is Thursday. What you?
We're here tomorrow and we're here on Friday again, my brother. I look forward to our continued dialogue.
Truth is absolute and lies are temporary. Land are permanent.
Take it easy, Al. So we have to run now. All the best. Do enjoy the rest of the day, my friend. Want to thank our guest this morning and want to thank our broadcast technician, Tanya, as we run out of the studio and encourage you to join us tomorrow for more of Straight Up.